Kala Christouyana from Greece, Merry Christmas. If you're celebrating, happy holidays. In any case, it's a good opportunity, for family to be together and, relax a bit and so on. So from Orthopedic Reflexology, I'm Spiros, of course. I want to say, wish everyone a Happy New Year also around the corner. Merry Christmas. Thank you for all the interest in my work this last year. To the students attending the trainings in Athens. Poland was big this year. Thank you very much, ART. Of course, London and France, a new country in France. Actually, I've spoken in Marseille in the past, but teaching a 3-day course was new, so thank you very much. Inspired by the candy cane, I want to talk to you about an anatomical structure in the foot. Every year I would, draw things in, and maybe we'll, obviously maybe when the year changes, try to draw 2025 on the feet with anatomical structures. But inspired by the candy cane, I want to talk to you about the Achilles tendon, or the calcaneal tendon, also referred to with that name. So initially beginning, it is the largest and strongest tendon of our body. It is made up of 3 muscles, the 2 heads of the gastrocnemius, the medial and the lateral, and the soleus muscle. And all 3 together will be described as triceps surae. And as the muscles are coming down, they unite and they form this tendon. And this is it's a viscoelastic structure. Like the foot, it means pretty simply that it can, change form and then come back to the initial form. This is used for propulsion, explosive propulsion, to absorb the energy, absorb the shock, and then release this energy again in order for us to move around. It is made up of, interestingly, it's so strong because it's made up of 90% collagen, 2% elastin, and then there are other molecules from the matrix involved, complementing its structure. Talk about balance, wouldn't you? The yin and the yang. But this is what is needed for this structure to be so strong. In TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, the tendons belong to the wood element. Included will be the ligaments also. So keep that in mind as we proceed, talking about the Achilles tendon. It has a spring, because it's viscoelastic, it has spring-like properties. And complementing that, as the muscles come down and transform to tendons, the Achilles will wind up to 90 degrees. It twists in order to reach its attachment point on the posterior surface of the calcaneal bone. And this is to reinforce, like a spring. It makes, by twirling around, twisting around, it makes a spring-like structure to coil and recoil. Again, this is to reinforce for energy. So that's what reminds me of the candy cane. Interestingly enough, the name Achilles means pains of the people. And I find it interesting that, his mother Thetis grabbed little Achilles by the foot to make him immortal. She held him by the foot and dipped him in the river Styx. The only part that didn't enter the river, because his mother was a goddess and there would be consequences if her hand entered the river, so she dipped him only up until his heel. And this was his vulnerable point. If you know your mythology, he was injured there by the arrow of Patroclus, and that was the end of him. But it's interesting that his name means pains of people. And if we go to sports injuries, 50% of sports injuries are associated with Achilles rupture on different levels, of course. So I think this is quite interesting. The Achilles tendon, if you're a fascia Enthusiast belongs to the superficial back line, everything on the back of the body, up to the epicranial aponeurosis. In traditional Chinese medicine, the Achilles would belong to the urinary bladder meridian, which coincides, interestingly enough, with the superficial back line. Bringing in some reflexology, I remember in my initial trainings, one major training was with Anthony Porter. He's from the UK, very famous, I believe. Hopefully you know him, and if you don't, you should look him up. And I remember during his trainings, he described that the Achilles is a reflex area for the adrenals, and there was, a tapping there to see how the tendon would react, and from this you could evaluate the condition of the adrenals. Now, what is interesting, and thinking about it ever back then, there's an interesting article, maybe your stress is your Achilles heel, meaning and describing that because we're under stress, and it could be because of drugs or endocrine diseases like Cushing's disease, and when we're under stress, we excrete cortisol into the bloodstream, and up to a point, this is great. It's very helpful for us, even for you listening to me now, you need a small amount of cortisol to do this. But when we overdo it, like all things in life, then there's too much cortisol in the bloodstream. And what this does, one of the things it does, is it will break down collagen. And remember, Achilles tendon is made up of 90% collagen. So it breaks down collagen and it turns it into energy, glucose. And of course, then we have further issues because of too much glucose in the bloodstream. So just wanted to bring in this piece of information from Anthony Porter, the adrenals and Achilles tendon. Going now to even some more reflexology in the Scandinavian countries, from Norway specifically, there's an interesting man, Carl Axel Lind. He's not alive anymore, but his work is strong and still influencing people. Now, he has various systems, and one of them describes the long bones, the tibia, and the peroneal bone, and the feet as the spinal column. So very quickly, if I were to turn the foot upside down and imagine the two long bones, your low back would be down here, and up here would be your cervical area, and your feet together would make up the cranium. This reflex map is not only common to Carl Axel Lind, but also in Asia, Dr. Tan balance method, TCM, they use these one limb for the other, mirror techniques, and you can reflect the body on there. So you can think of the Achilles tendon as ligaments of the neck, and I would think the first three cervical ligaments, and I spoke with a Belgian colleague, Judith Sercoul, Merry Christmas to Judith, and there is a complex of ligaments in the neck. Remember the TCM connection between that tendons and ligaments belong to the wood element, so they are similar. And you can think of this complex of ligaments in the neck. If I remember correctly, Judith said, in short, OAA complex, it's called like this. So it's interesting that there are similarities, thinking of the Carl Axel Lind method and the neck. So when you have maybe a client with neck issues, anything along the back, hard skin in the area, it's a shortened maybe Achilles, it could be a positive sign to work on this area. Now, regarding the winding up, and because it reminds us of the candy cane, at the attachment point on the calcaneal bone, this is your Achilles, and maybe you can see it's semi-lunar. I'll just put it back here. Now, there were three muscles and it's winding up, and that's why I chose a candy cane that has 3 colors instead of the classical red and white. And it's because at their attachment all point there would also be all 3 of them attaching. Now, in order to understand this, I want you to think of the Mercedes-Benz logo, and it has 3 compartments, and they're all equal if you think of it. Look at it next time you see it. And this does not happen in the Achilles attachment because the muscles, the 2 gastrocnemius heads and the soleus are not of the same size. The more larger muscle is the soleus. So they would have an attachment like this, resembling the 3 colors. And you can see the lateral gastrocnemius, the medial gastrocnemius attachment point, and they are more lateral. And more medial will be the soleus. So for you people, colleagues that are working maybe with sports people and they have issues either in their soleus or their gastrocnemius, you might want to focus medially or laterally or behind. And this is why in orthopedic reflexology training, for those of you who have trained with me, we approach the Achilles tendon in all 3 aspects. So this is what reminds me of the candy cane, the twisting, the 3 compartments, the attachment. And just to recap here, we can work the Achilles tendon. I know that many people, across the world are interested in this, some are not, but we can work for neck pain, for anything along the back line, for anything along the urinary bladder, which is similar if you compare. For the urinary bladder organ, you can add it in. Remember to work all 3 surfaces. Remember to check if it's a shortened Achilles. Maybe there is a dry skin there. For those of you who have trained with me, remember that under the skin is a piece of bursa, which is a gel fluid. So bring in paragraph 17. And there is also another piece of bursa underneath the Achilles. So there is no rubbing here against the bone. Here will be the bursa. So you can, bring in paragraph 17 and think of hydration. You can work on it for adrenals. Let me think. Questions. If the zones are vertical, they're going down Dr. Fitzgerald's zones. The 5th zone would be laterally, the 1st zone medially. But as we see, they begin like this and they twist. So the 5th zone actually comes towards the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It just brings in interesting questions of, are we working in zones? Are we working in other ways? I would work on it for people that say they drag their feet, they don't have enough force, for propulsion and so on. And you might think of working the Achilles. Research has shown when we have plantar aponeurosis issues, plantar fasciitis, to work together the Achilles tendon because they are a continuum. It is not always the point to relax it. Research has shown that there are many a times that you have to tighten it. How do we discriminate as reflexologists or orthopedic reflexologists? Well, you feel first as you've learned, and then you apply the correct technique guided by paragraph 17. Wish you a Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope to see you in one of my future courses soon enough. In June, I'll be in February in Poland, Warsaw. March also, very active there in Poland. June is Toulouse, hopefully Switzerland also. July is London to Hagar bases. Merry Christmas, Hagar, and everyone else. Yeah, Athens in April. September is the ICR conference in April. I will be having a training in Athens also. Wish you the best. I hope next time you see a piece of candy cane, you remember your Achilles tendon. Bye. Thank you. Kala Christu Yana. Merry Christmas.